Hello and welcome back to the channel. Everybody that's returning, thank you so much for coming back to join me today. And for all the new viewers, I really appreciate if you take a minute at the end of the video or whenever it suits to hit that subscribe button. I'm really overwhelmed with the channel support in the last few weeks. It's been great. We're all trying to share a common thing, and that's the enjoyment of not just maybe a Kubota B2601, but a compact tractor or getting outside and doing things. So thanks again for everybody, first time and returning viewers. I just wanted to get that out of the way. So today, I'm not going to do a tutorial. What I'm going to do is, and I know not everybody has them, but I choose, because of when I bought the tractor, I have my handy dandy tire bar here so you can see what I'm going to be doing. I had bought the R14s because it was the thing to do, but I choose to keep them fresh. So I like to run them in the winter. They're a little aggressive on my sod. I do use a mid-mount mower. So the R4s, which I'm going to put on today, I like to run them for the summer. And by doing so, I don't even have to, and these could be tightened up a little bit, but I don't have to even take my chains on and off. I leave them right on the wheels, and that's where they stay. So it kind of, I switched them because I do like them in the ice and I do like them in the snow, but like I say, on the lawn, they're a little bit aggressive. So a few points to remember. This is just kind of how I do it. Doesn't necessarily mean how you should do it. Refer to your owner's manual for torques and specifications. When you're using, and I'm not jacking anything up today, I just have everything blocked on the front and back so that if something were to happen, that it's not going to hit the ground. But definitely in no way, shape, or form am I going to put my body underneath the tractor while I'm doing anything here. I'm using the backhoe stabilizers to lift the wheels off the ground on the back, and I'm using the loader to lift the wheels on the front. I put my blocks in underneath before we even go near it. So, tools I'm going to be using today. Now, I know not everybody has this. I do my own tire work for a lot of tire changes. I own my own tractor trailer, so I do a lot of my own tire work. So I do have my own tire bars and tools. But today I'm going to be using a tire bar just actually to help manipulate the rear tire, because these lads, when they're loaded, it doesn't look like a big tire, but they are loaded. And this front, as you can see, it's not heavy. I cannot do that with this. I'm not sure the amount. If anybody wants to leave a comment on how many pounds per gallon of weight you get for your either rim guard, and in this case I'm using AgriLim. That's what my dealer installed, and seems to work good, and she's lots heavy. But I can tilt them side to side, and as you see, I don't want to lay it down. And guys, like I say, I do my own tractor trailer tires, and these little buggers are more awkward to manipulate than that. So if you're uncomfortable doing it yourself, by all means, get yourself a tire guy to do this. So with that being said, tire bar, I'm going to use on the back a 22 millimeter deep socket. And on the front wheels, I'm going to use a 17 millimeter socket. And I do have a torque wrench. Definitely need a torque wrench to tighten the wheels. You never want to over tighten your wheel nuts no matter what. And I do have this DCF 900 half-inch drive DeWalt impact. Now, this thing will take the wheel nuts easily off of my tractor trailer, and they're torqued at 500 pound-feet. So never use these things for putting them on the tractor. Taking them off, and I even have it set on low. These are an absolute beast. So when I'm working around a car or my tractor, I definitely don't go to number 3 setting here for all she'll suffer, because you'll totally ruin everything. So best rule of thumb, use it for removing only. Install and reinstall your nuts by hand so you don't over torque them and don't ruin your threads. So anyway, that's what we're going to do. I'm going to now get to it. Now, what I'm going to do is just make sure that this doesn't flip out on me towards the front. I'll leave my top nut on for now. Get this one off. It's a little bit big for this application, but it works. Now, another thing, guys, girls, on the rear nut, it's got a chamfer. The front wheel nuts don't. They're flat with a washer. And on the rear now, this chamfer always goes to the inside. And that is what centers your wheel. It's the chamfer itself. So it's a nut piloted wheel system on the back. I know that's a little bit, probably will never use that useless piece of information, but that's what centers your wheel on the outer part of your hub is the wheel nut. Now, we're just going to loosen this off. I see nothing fell out on me. Now, this lad here, she's the heavy one. So, maybe before I put my bar underneath, the last thing we want to do, because there's a lot of weight on here, we don't want to hurt any of these threads. So, we want to have that as close to the ground as possible where we can get it off, but not where it's going to damage the threads on the studs, because this is very heavy. So the sliding across the studs is going to make it. Anyway, we don't want to hurt anything on there. Handy. We just roll it a little, tilt it out a bit, and manipulate. Now I have too much stuff in the way here, but there we go. So I slid that out without. And these are heavy. We're just going to set that against the bucket for now. Hopefully it don't fall down. And we're going to take our other wheel. Now that should be cleaned before I install, because this is your mating surface. You can see there's a little bit of dust and mud there. So I'm going to give that a wipe off. Let me come back with a rag and get that cleaned up. That's the thing about tractors. And you can see I have wheel spacers on this, because when you're running chains, there's not enough clearance between the inside of the wheel and your fender. And so you definitely need these. I bought from the dealer. They're, I'll be right back. So these are 1 3/8. So 1 3/8 on both sides, and they do really increase the stability of the tractor on side hills and such. And I may even think about getting, or see if I can, if anybody knows where I can get them, front wheel spacers to get the front wheels out a little bit. It's not tippy, but as we all know, if you get out a little bit wider, especially with the loader's capabilities and such, it's better to have a little bit more stability than not enough. Okay. There. The bar. We got it very close. Slid them up on. Now we'll let it stay there. My hand against it there. I say, guys, these don't look like big wheels, but when they're loaded, they have a lot of power in them. I always like to start my wheel nuts by hand first, so we don't cross thread any of the studs or nuts. And like I said before, chamfer in. That's what centers the wheel on the hub. Now, don't do as I do. For this next part, I am going to use the gun for. We want to go to the little nut setting here. I'm just going to. Yeah, it's not So on here, there's a little bolt on the DCF 900. A little, I don't know what it's for, but it doesn't give it really any torque. So we don't have to worry about over torquing. Now, the next part I am going to recommend is once you're on your nut, cross pattern all the time. Tightening wheel nuts. And I just made contact and I stopped. There, that's it. That's all we're doing with the gun. As you can see, it didn't tighten too far. It just kept me from winding them all on my fingers right now. They're all pretty well moving. So, as we're putting our wheel nuts on, always cross corner. Anytime you do any type of application that has to be torqued, there's always a sequence. So refer to your owner's manual. I, as a rule of thumb, always go top, bottom, side to side, and always torque in steps. You always want to torque in steps because that way you'll get an even seat on your wheel. Okay, now I switched over to my 17mm socket for the front. And if you know anything about the European and now the Canadian, it's all metric. So unfortunately, that's the world we live in. Everything has gone to metric. I have to have, in my application, I have to have sets of both. I have to have both SAE and metric. That's just the way it is. So 17mm, and we're just gonna make sure our gun is in reverse. And I have it on the lowest setting possible. But as you see, there's a nut, there's a lock washer, and a flat washer with every one. And unlike the rear, these are not nut piloted wheels. They're just basically bolt right on there. So I will take them off. I'll go over here. It's always good to get into a habit of, and even when I loosen them, I like to go cross corner. You don't have to, it just gets you in the mindset to keep doing that. Okay, now we got our wheel nuts off. Front tire now comes off. And have a look at that, everything looks clean. It's here. Give it a wipe. You always want to make sure your mating surfaces are clean. Now with this, it's a kind of a treat to work with compared to the rear. But there we go. Put it on. So with this particular tractor, it came with flat washer first to do the top, lock washer second. And I'm gonna, what happens when you have lock washers, they get a little bit of a groove into the back of the nut. I'm gonna keep that to the inside as well. And get them all started first. Okay, so before I go any further, I just wanted to do a little clarification. All wheels have to be centered to a hub somehow. On the back, it uses the chamfer of the wheel nut to locate, we'll call it, so that you don't have a bumpa, 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 bumpa. I like that for sound effects, going down the road or whatever. So on the steers or the front, it is a hub piloted axle. So what that means is the hub itself has a raised lip, and it's the exact same or very close to the exact same diameter as the wheel. So that's how they get away with the flat washers and such, and you don't need to worry about a chamfered wheel nut on the front, is because they're using the hub itself to pilot. And what I mean by pilot is to center the wheel so it doesn't start shaking out of control when you're doing your high-end speed of, I think it's 18 kilometers an hour. Don't quote me on that one. But anyway, it's what keeps it from being an eccentric, so to speak. So when you put your wheel on, the center of the hub is actually protruding through the wheel a bit. That's what centers it. Okay. So now that I have all of my wheels just that they're touching, and you'll see that's going to take quite a bit with that by hand to get them seated all the way, I'm going to torque the rears. Now consult your owner's manual, but mine gives a bit of a range for the rears. I'm going to stick at about 110 pound-feet for the rear, and it also gives a bit of a range for the front, and I'm going to go to about 65 pound-feet for the front. So as I was saying with the front, they're just flat washers that the hub locates the wheel. On the back, the rear hub does locate it somewhat, but most of your location happens with the chamfer on the nuts. So we're just going to torque this now to, so as you can see, I didn't go too far with my Ugga Dugga. That's my impact. I'm going to go cross pattern. Now I'm using a 5-inch extension. I should have a 6 because I'm touching the side of the wheel a little bit, but for all intents and purposes, she's going to work for this application today. And now they do recommend in my owner's manual that after 200 yards that these wheels should be retorqued. So if that applies to you, I would strongly do it, because that's when everything gets a chance to settle. Now we'll just double check. That's that. So now that we have all our wheels torqued, that's it for today's project. So again, as a list of tools I needed to do this. Now you can use, I would recommend a very heavy hydraulic jack if you're not using your loader, or if you don't have a loader or a backhoe. Now I somewhat cheated a little bit. I used a front loader to raise the tractor up, put my blocking underneath before I went anywhere near it, and everything was on the blocks. I used the backhoe to do the same. It works really well when you have a backhoe, but we don't all have a backhoe or even a loader on the B2601. So consult your owner's manual where your jacking points are underneath. But anyway, if you have to change a tire or a wheel, if you're in the bush or in the woods or the forest, whatever you want to call it, and you have to get it off to get it out to a tire repair shop or whatever it may be, I hope this helps you along the way. Reinstalling it, it's very basic. There's not a whole pile to it once you get to it. So today I used my torque wrench. I have it set at 110, like I say, for the back here. 22 millimeter socket for the rear wheel nut, 17 millimeter deep socket for the front. And we don't all have one of these, but today I was using the DeWalt DCF 900, which is an absolute beast. Like I say, it'll take anything you want pretty well off or on. So thanks very much, guys, for coming along today. I appreciate it. I appreciate all those fantastic comments that I've been seeing in the last few weeks. And thanks so much to all the returning viewers again, and for subscribing and helping this channel grow. We're all just out here just kind of have a little bit of enjoyment in life. And thanks again, and we'll catch you on the next one.